Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by the great folks over at Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I am joined, as always, by Harman Dial, and joining us shortly, Jeff Patterson. Jeff Patterson's going to join us to help us break down last night's game between the Canucks and the Seattle Kraken. Preview tonight's game. Jeff was at morning skate today. They actually didn't have a morning skate, I should say. He was at Talkett's pregame media avail. And Harm, I don't know if you caught this, but the pregame media avail, Canucks posted fire questions from J-Pat to Rick Talkett. It was phenomenal. It was so nice to see. Like real questions about player statuses. We got a Paterson Hughes update thanks to Jeff. I'm just so glad Jeff was at morning skate today.
Definitely, and that's the advantage of when you're at home. It's different. Whereas on the road, a lot of times there isn't a lot of traveling media, and you don't get the same types of questions. I also love J-Pat. I believe it was him who asked about Vinny Desharnais in OT at the end there. I like Talkett's response as well. I was shocked when I saw Vinny Desharnais step over the boards in 3-on-3 overtime. Never in my lifetime did I think I'd see that.
Let's start there. So Talkett's asked about that today by J-Pat. Loved that he got the question, by the way. Like, you could tell on Talkett's face. He was excited that someone asked him about that. He said, yeah, I just told Footy to go with his gut. And he was mentioning that Susie had been on the ice, Myers had been on the ice. You look up and down the bench, you're not putting Juleson out. So Vinny step over the boards. He makes the pass, and this is the first thing that people are bringing up in the YouTube chat today. Well, one of the first things. Ari45 said that pass from Vinny in OT, though. Paul Papadoulis, Desharnais in OT had me frightened. Broke Shinobi in the chat said Quads was right about Vinny. Oliver Sholnick in the chat, Vinny in OT was a fever dream. And Broke Shinobi again say, have Vinny QB power play 1. The guy who did quarterback power play 1, Tyler Myers, he also had himself a strong game, and he got highlighted by the head coach as well.
Yeah, he was electric. He had up massive minutes. Even just in the first period, for example, the Canucks had issues early on with breaking the puck out, and I remember there was one play where he just decided to wheel it around the net, skated up the ice all by himself. And not that Myers does that very often, but compared to the other blue liners, it was like, oh my god, look at the speed that Myers has here and what he's able to do on the breakout. So yeah, he ate massive minutes. The goal in the third period was obviously huge, and credit to him. I know it hasn't always been perfect, but ever since Hronek has gone down, he's been tasked with eating massive minutes. And for the most part, I think he's held the fort down as reasonably well as anybody could have expected.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct about that. Tyler Myers stepping up big when the team needs him. Speaking of which, Jeff Patterson joins us now. Jeff, you stepped up when the team needed you the most. Those questions today to talk it. We got Hughes Patterson updates all because of your questions. So thanks for going to the rink today. I should try that sometime.
I saw you there not that long ago.
I'm trying to go more. It's not the resolution for 2025, but I am trying to go more. I am trying to go a little bit more often to get out of the rink.
So
It's
I'm
fun.
I'm a little frightened by the trend that might be developing. It's a little soon. It's a small sample size, but 2025 and Tyler Myers played 25 minutes and 47 seconds. He's got a 3-year deal here, guys. So by 2027, are we going to see a 37-year-old Tyler Myers logging 27? The 25-47, I had to look this up this morning. The most that he has played as a member of the Vancouver Canucks since 2021. So I didn't think flipping the calendar would lead us to a point where we were seeing Tyler Myers go for 26 minutes in a hockey game. I know it included overtime, and it was all hands on deck, right? Like, it really was desperate times, desperate measures. And you give him the options. Like, I'm not surprised ultimately that he was the guy that was running the first unit power play. Hey, he scored a nice goal. And yeah, I mean, you take the good and the bad with Tyler Myers. They're asking an awful lot of him. I guess my concern is this is back-to-back now and 3 and 4 nights with a little bit of travel. Like, you can get away with it, and they did, and they win the hockey game in Seattle, but Are they going to lean on Myers that much again, back-to-back against a Nashville team that's not very good, but guys, they haven't played since Tuesday. Like, they've been sitting here with their feet up in Vancouver for days now while the Canucks have made the round. So, really curious on a lot of levels. What do the Canucks have left in the tank here before they head out on a 5-game Eastern road trip? And ultimately, what are we expecting from Tyler Myers in terms of ice time in back-to-back nights?
Overall, what did you think of the Canucks' performance in Seattle?
I didn't like the start, but what have they played? 37 games, and I've probably said that about 34 times. They settled in, and just a brutal goal given up by Thatcher Demko, and yet then he made a couple of saves to prevent it from being 2-0 and 3-0, and it could have been lights out early on. So I almost give Demko a bit of a pass on the bad goal because for the limited time that he was in that hockey game, made some saves that allowed the Canucks to hang around. And then they settled in. Like, they had one shot midway through the first period, and we've seen that story way too many times. Like, I'm done with that as a storyline, and yet it just keeps happening. And then against the run of the play, they get a goal that sort of allowed them to exhale. And before you know it, they start to chip away and take over. The second period, I liked a lot of the second period from the Vancouver Canucks. And Connor Garland had gone a little bit quiet there through the month of December, but he scored in 2 of his last 3. And in the absence of Elias Patterson and Quinn Hughes, they need some guys to step up. So not a surprise that Connor Garland was one of the candidates there. And then, as we talked about, Tyler Myers. So, I thought they did well to overcome a slow start, take a 3-1 lead. But how many times? How many times are we going to watch these guys just sit back and flush leads? Twice this week to Seattle, Utah just before Christmas when they had the 2-0 lead there and half a period to go. Obviously, goes all the way back to opening night against the Calgary Flames. So playing with and protecting late leads hasn't necessarily been the strong suit of the Vancouver Canucks, and you just hope that it didn't cost them ultimately last night, although Seattle does get a single point when it looked like they would get nothing. But the Canucks come away with it with a much-needed victory, even if it wasn't a complete effort and picture perfect. They needed a win. They're first without Quinn Hughes and Elias Patterson, and we'll see if they can back it up with another tonight.
One of the other interesting takeaways from that game was JT Miller and his line mates among the Canucks' lowest forwards for 5-on-5 ice time in that game. Now, he did find ways to, of course, contribute in that one, had the shootout winner, had the assist on Myers' goal. But what did you make of the lack of ice time in that Seattle game and in his overall performance?
Yeah, at the end of the night, I was surprised when I looked through the 5-on-5 ice time, and there's JT at 10 minutes and 1 second, and the low man for the Vancouver Canucks. Just wasn't expecting that because his line was terrific in Calgary. They didn't score 5-on-5, but they ran the show for the most part. Besser scored a power play goal, and so 2 nights later, for them just collectively all to be off, I kind of got a sense early on, Brock Besser's second shift of the night was 1 minute and 52 seconds. Like, he turned the puck over, got caught with others turning the puck over, and he was out there for just way too long. And his night didn't get a whole lot better there. Jake DeBrusk had a couple of moments. I think DeBrusk had the first Canucks shot halfway through the first period. Not that that's any great accomplishment. I don't think you set out at the start of the game, I'm going to be the guy that gets the first shot for the Vancouver Canucks. But yeah, JT, it's more of what we've seen, that it's confusing. It's hard to fully grasp. He's had the night since the comeback where he took on McKinnon straight up, and that was probably the best game that he's played, I think, start to finish, was the Colorado game. But his first game back against Florida with Barkov and Tkachuk, like, there have been some nights. And as you mentioned, Harm, like, he's picking up points. I think he has 6 assists in his last 5 games, but 11 without a goal now. It was nice to see him snap one in the shootout and contribute that way, but no shot attempts and 2 penalties, and the second one was costly because it allowed the Kraken back in the hockey game. So I asked Tuckett about it this morning, and he said combination of the fact that he knew that JT and his line mates just didn't have it last night, and other guys did. And so, we saw other guys get more opportunities. I think it's encouraging to see Nils Höglander had some real life to his game, had a third period opportunity. Would have been great to see him score. His drought's up to 30 games now. Dakota Joshua was involved physically as well. There's not a bottom line aspect to that, but I thought Höglander and Joshua doing more of the things that you want to see from them that will allow them ultimately to have some success here. And hey, for a guy like Max Sasson, up to 6 points in 15 games. And I know somebody pointed out to me that he's on a PDO bender, and that's fine. I don't think he's going to be a half a point a game guy throughout his National Hockey League career, but good on him. I was looking at this. The Canucks have 12 points from rookies this year, and Sasson's got 6 of them. He's got half of the rookie contribution. So that's a guy that's just making the most of an opportunity. And again, in light of the fact that JT Miller's gone quiet offensively, Pia Suter's kind of gone quietly off. He's gone quiet offensively as well. If those guys are your top 2 centers right now with Elias Patterson, you need some others to chip in. And so to get a goal from Sasson and get a goal from Myers, again, it wasn't a pretty hockey game, but end of the night, they get the 2 points, and really that is all that matters, I suppose.
JT Miller, first star last night. Pointed that out on Twitter.
That was wild.
Hey, man, you got a point.
As you guys know, like, we do our own 3 stars on Rinkwide, and I always like to see who are the 3 stars in the building. And that was the classic case of, like, leave a blank as the game goes to overtime, and whoever gets the overtime winner or the shootout winner, that's your first star. So, not taking into account all of the events of the night as we talked about with JT Miller. But yes, the first star of the hockey game, and we'll see if he can have another first star performance. Although I don't know if he want another first star performance if it's going to look like it did last night. But he should be rested. And like, honestly, if that's the upside, 3 games in 4 nights and back-to-back here, the fact that Miller and his line mates didn't play a whole lot and weren't great, like, be better tonight, and they can't use fatigue because they just didn't play an awful lot against the Kraken.
Okay, we're getting some questions about updates for tonight's lineup against the Nashville Predators. Jeff, you asked talking about Quinn Hughes and Elias Patterson. We got an update. Those guys are going to be going on the road trip. Does it sound like they're going to be back soon?
Well, Elias Patterson and Phil Hronek were both skating this morning at Rogers Arena, so that's promising. We still don't know the full nature of Elias Patterson's injury. That remains a mystery. I believe it's upper body, and he probably wouldn't be skating if it was lower body at the stage. So, Rick Tocchet said a week ago, week to week, I think there was some hope that I think he said a week to week, give or take a day, and I think people were hoping that maybe it was, less a day, and he might be ready for tonight. But he will not play. But both Hughes and Patterson will travel on this trip. The Canucks played night and then are jumping back on the jet and heading east, which is wild considering that Artur Silovs was in Laval with Abbotsford. He gets the call, has to fly commercially all day across the continent, will serve as the backup, hopefully, that's all he does, and then gets to fly on the charter right back to Montreal tomorrow. So life in the NHL, you get the NHL paycheck, and it's not always glamorous, but that's the job of a third-string guy that's in the system. So Artur Silovs will be the backup to Kevin Lankinen tonight. They don't have any other options up front, so it is the same 12 forwards. And when I asked Rick Tocchet if there was a chance of any change on defense, just given that it's back-to-back and 3 and 4, he said that he would talk about it with his coaching staff, but he liked what he got from his 6 guys, including Guillaume Brisebois last night and the big rig in overtime, Vinny Desharnais. So it sounds to me like Brandstrom's going to sit, and they are going to roll the dice again with these 6 defensemen. On paper, it's one of those things you sort of put your hand over your face as you look at the Canucks depth chart right now on the back end without Quinn Hughes and Hronek. But I think Rick Tocchet's going to reward the 6 guys that ground out a victory for him last night and come right back with essentially the same lineup. Lankinen obviously gets the start tonight, and that's going to be a challenge for him going back-to-back, even though he didn't play the entire game last night in Seattle.
What did you make of Brisebois last night? And I think Quads and I agree that we want to see Eric Brandstrom in the lineup. I assume you're kind of in a similar boat there as well, just based off your reaction.
Yeah, let me start by, I've got nothing but, all the respect in the world for Guillaume Brisebois, a guy that has battled through a bunch of things, he gives the Abbotsford Canucks what he can, he gives the NHL Canucks what he can. He's 27 years old. He hadn't played in the NHL in almost 2 years, March of 2023, and was on the receiving end of just a brutal, terrible, cheap shot hit from Brandon Tanev in a preseason game that was out of reach and out of hand. It just never should have happened. And for him to stick with it and just, chip away to get to this opportunity, that in itself is a good news story. As for his play, we talked about the bad goal that Demko gives up. A moment later, the Kraken have a 2-on-1. He couldn't have played it any better. It was textbook defense. So, 15 minutes of ice time, low maintenance, low profile, kind of what you wanted to see from him. Didn't play a lot in the late stages, although when they were rolling through D in overtime, I guess I wouldn't have been shocked if he was the next guy up. We didn't get to that stage, which is probably a good thing. But no, like, he is the ultimate definition of a depth defender at this stage. But he got tapped and did what he could. And again, like, I thought he was all right. And I guess I had relatively low expectations, and I thought he delivered there. But now back to back, and this isn't one of the top teams in the National Hockey League, although the Preds are starting to score more. They're not winning a whole lot more. They come in here on a 3-game losing streak, but they are starting to score a little bit more. So even though you look way down the standings, the fact that they're fresh and ready to go, I think they're going to give the Canucks all they can handle in this hockey game tonight.
Jeff, just as we kind of pivot away from the games on the ice, like, the thing that Harmon and I were talking about yesterday was this idea that really we debated it, whether or not like something had to give. We're getting Hughes back a little early than we expected. Like, we're going to get to see him in this lineup sooner than we expected. But, like, are the Canucks just in wait-and-see mode? I think maybe you wait until you see what you have with Quinn back in the lineup. But, like, do the Canucks make a big trade, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think I'm past the point of expecting it now. Like, with Jim Rutherford and Patrick Elvine, I kind of figured that it was going to happen in the week leading up to the roster freeze. The team was sort of, teetering on the brink a little bit and not playing particularly well. And Hronek had been out for a while, and we had seen what this team looked like just down Hronek. And then obviously Hughes goes out at Christmas. And so I'm surprised. I guess I still expect that they're going to make their move at some point. Some of that comes back to the idea of accruing as much cap space as possible so that you can go big game hunting later in the season, as opposed to, trying to patchwork, just find a stopgap solution here. So that's why wins like last night were important. If they lose that one and have to come home for one game, pressure's going up on the players that they've got, and they hadn't delivered to that point without Hughes and Patterson. So I thought it was important that they got the 2 points out of the Kraken, and we'll see again if they can back it up here. But yeah, I mean, look, I think this management group has shown it likes to be aggressive. There's certainly enough chatter out there around this hockey club right now on so many levels and with so many different angles that I anticipate something's going to happen. But just back to your point, Dave, about getting Quinn Hughes back sooner than expected, like, Christmas Day was a Wednesday, I think. So it's been a week and a little bit. He's not playing tonight. I don't know that he plays on Monday to start the road trip in Montreal. If he plays the game after that, that's Wednesday in Washington. That's 2 weeks. Rick Tocchet all along said week to week. So, I think it's within the realm of the time frame that they initially put forward here. And I know that Dollywall had said, hey, it might even be sooner than what the Canucks had been saying. Whatever the case, they're not going to have him for this game. It certainly diminishes the enjoyment level, I think, of anybody that watches the Vancouver Canucks or follows the Vancouver Canucks. They want him back in there as soon as possible. But I also see a lot of noise on social about them, rushing players back. And all along, they said a week for Elias Patterson. He's not playing. It's going to be more than a week. Like, I don't think there's any rushing here with Elias Patterson. I don't think they pressured JT Miller to end his leave sooner than he did. So I don't get a sense that there is a ton of rushing here. I guess for me, the injury update that I really want is Thatcher Demko, and Rick Tocchet didn't have anything to add. I'll take them at face value that it is back spasms, and that's all it is. But with Thatcher Demko's history and the organization's history, it is sometimes difficult to just accept at face value what they first offer up in the way of a diagnosis. So the fact that they're bringing in Artur Silovs obviously tells you that Demko couldn't serve as a backup even in this hockey game. And let's see, when is he over the back spasms, if that's what this is, and how quickly can he get back to being an option? In the short term, they're fine. They're fine with Kevin Lankinen, but if this turns into more, and we don't have to go back very far in the history books with Thatcher Demko to recognize that, day-to-day can lead to a lot longer. So, yeah, I'm really curious. Is he going to travel? That can't be great if it is back spasms to fly home from Seattle, a day's turnaround, and then have a long cross-continent flight, even though they travel first class and everything else on their charter. If you're trying to rest up back spasms, that's not the ideal environment. So I'm kind of curious, and we'll see post-game tonight if Rick Tocchet has any. He didn't earlier today, but with some time, he said he hadn't talked to Demko today. We'll see if there's any sort of update on his health and well-being after leaving the game last night in Seattle.
I did really like that Talkett said, "Oh, a couple days. I've had them before." I like that. That's his barometer for how long guys are gonna be out. Is have I or a teammate ever had this injury? I love it. I love it. It's good. It's great.
I'm guessing, just a hunch, that medical treatments and rehab has probably made some strides since Rick's playing days, just a little bit as well there. So I'm not sure that we can go by the book of Talkett on his own injuries and apply them to modern day National Hockey Leaguers. But I get where he's coming from. He was a rough, tough player and probably experienced a lot of dings along the way, and back was surely one of them. So, he has some experience there, but he didn't play the position that Thatcher Demko does either. And if you're going to be a successful goalie in the National Hockey League, I would think that you would have to have full movement and freedom in your mind as well. You could be playing with a tricky back. So hopefully that's, again, all it is for Thatcher Demko, and that a couple of days here will allow him to get back on the ice sooner rather than later.
Right on, Jeff. Appreciate it. We'll see you on Rinkwide later tonight.
Yeah, Irf will be in again. We do this back-to-back, and right now this team is offering up no shortage of storylines. So, kind of curious what this one against the Preds will bring tonight.
Love it. Good stuff, Jeff. Talk soon.
All right, guys. Thanks.
There he is, Jeff Patterson. I wanted to get this comment. We were talking about how there's not much entertainment without Quinn Hughes, or you're lacking some entertainment value. RE45 in the chat said false. Watching Tyler Myers on PP1 is pure entertainment. Vinny Desharnais and OT. I don't know how much more entertaining it gets than that. That's a great contribution from RE45 in the chat. Speaking of the chat, Super Chats. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Then hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. So hit us with a Super Chat if you feel so inclined to do so. I think that's a great comment. Okay, let's go to tonight's game against Nashville. Anything else you want to say about the last night against Kraken, Harm?
Not a lot to really add. We already discussed a lot. Obviously, huge credit to Lankinen for stepping in cold there. He made a flurry of huge saves in the second period. Loved to stop on Burakovsky in the third, and then perfect in the shootout. Kudos to him.
Yep. Just another sad Seattle sports franchise to watch. I pointed to my Mariners flag behind me for anybody who's on the podcast and wondering why I said that. Anyways, okay. Let's go to tonight's game against the Nashville Predators. Yeah, we mentioned it. Kevin Lankinen's going to start again. Archer Shilovs flies across the country from Quebec to back up this evening. Obviously, Abbotsford was in Quebec or in Laval to take on the Laval Rocket. So Archer Shilovs is going to be backing up tonight. Kevin Lankinen starts in goal. Yeah, no update yet on Thatcher Demko, but he did go with, he did exit with some back spasms, and honestly, I saw people tweeting about this. This was the only time that fans would be really happy about back spasms, because he left at the start of the second period, and the sequence right before that was him like dropping down, and he kind of looked like he was laboring. And at first I was like, okay, this is his left knee. His knee just popped out again. It's over, because he was kind of hesitant to push off of his left leg. Obviously, back spasms would do that to you too, but I was like, oh my gosh, his knee's done. Like, it just popped up again. He's going to be in trouble. But what it actually looks like is him colliding with Noah Juleson in the blue paint at the end of the first period and kind of falling on his tailbone there. That looks like what is the reason for Thatcher Demko's back spasm. So hopefully he's okay. But yeah, he leaves with back spasms last night, and at least it wasn't a knee.
Yeah, I mean, when he exited the game, I think everybody in the market was really worried, especially because this is such a unique situation with the injury that Demko is returning from, where, again, we've said it before, I'll say it again, no goaltender in the NHL has ever, not just goaltender, no hockey player, period, has had a documented case of this popliteus injury. And so you just don't know. This is sort of uncharted waters and unprecedented territory. And for it to be back spasms, to hear that post game was a huge relief, because again, the moment that he left the game, I think a lot of people, myself included, were worried about the potential worst case scenario.
Yeah, it was good to see him come back. And Kevin Lankinen said post-game, he told Dan Murphy on the broadcast there that he had some communication, some indication that he was going to be coming in for the second period. So Demko gave it a go, decided to take a step back, and Lankinen was just brilliant. That's the other thing about that game. Lankinen was so good, made some big saves immediately to keep the Canucks in that game. And yeah, yes, it's concerning that they almost let Seattle come right back and take that game right away from them. You don't want to give a point up to Seattle. Like, let's be honest here. You don't want to give up the loser point, which is what Seattle got last night. But at the end of the day, with what the Canucks are going through in terms of their injuries and everything, I don't think we need to dissect them blowing another lead. It's just they got 2 points. They should feel lucky to get 2 points. And now it looks like Quinn Hughes is going to come back for that road trip, or part of that road trip at least, when the Canucks schedule gets much, much tougher. But before it gets tougher, they face the Nashville Predators tonight. Look, it's the second leg of a back-to-back, so you never really know what you're going to get. But tonight's game against the Preds, like, their power play isn't, like, I don't think it's even in the top half of the league, but we've seen this Nashville power play be dangerous before, and that's kind of one thing that I'm looking at for the Canucks is win the special teams battle tonight, and you'll probably be okay. That's kind of what I look at when I kind of give a rudimentary look at this game.
Yeah, that's what killed them last time they played Nashville, right? And it also seems like Steven Stamkos is just a Canuck killer. He got his, he had one of his milestones. Was it his
500? I thought it was 500.
Yeah, I've been in the building when he had that milestone moment. I think last year or the year before that. While he was still with Tampa, he had 2 goals last time these two teams met. And he is really that key to that Nashville power play. But also one thing that I'm looking for in general, beyond just the special teams battle, is they have started to get rolling offensively a little bit. Like Jeff alluded to, they've still been losing games, but they early in the season were so anemic offensively, not just in terms of goal output, but quality of chances. And they hadn't found the right top 6 mix. Now, with their top line as it's currently constructed, they've got Forsberg, Stamkos, and Marchessault, with Stamkos playing down the middle. Since they've gone with that combination, Marchessault's really caught fire. He's got 9 goals in his last 10 games. He's heating up. And so when I look at that top line, if you can slow that trio down, then I think the Canucks have a really good chance to win, because the rest of their forward lineup just really lacks scoring pop. I mean, their second line with Nyquist, O'Reilly, and Hinostroza is like just doesn't inspire much confidence, right? Hinostroza is a fringe NHL player. Nyquist and O'Reilly are decent veterans, but they're not having very good seasons. And then you look at the third line with Jankowski, Novak, and Evangelista. Novak and Evangelista are having sort of down years relative to expectations, and same thing, their fourth line, you don't expect a lot of offense out of there as well. Plus their back end is a little bit thin now that they of course lost Dante Fabro to Columbus. They traded Alex Carrier. So you look at the right side of the blue line, they've got Justin Barron, Nick Blankenberg, Luke Schenn. Like, that's something that the Canucks have to take advantage of.
Yeah, Nashville's looking for something in Justin Barron there. He's going to play on their top pairing, it looks like, and we'll see.
He hasn't been very good in Montreal.
And he hasn't been very good in Nashville either. The early look is not great for Justin Barron. So we'll see how that looks tonight. I got a couple quick tidbits on Nashville before we move to anyone else, Harm. They're on a 3-game losing streak entering tonight. They also have the fewest wins of any team in the league. They're 31st in the standings, but they have 11 wins on the season. I don't think everybody knew that. Just 11 wins for this team. They are in front of only Chicago in the standings with 29 points. They have some games in hand on the San Jose Sharks, who have 3 points, but just 29 points, just 11 wins, 7 overtime losses or extra time losses for the Nashville Predators, who visit Rogers Arena tonight. This is another one. Again, we look at Monday against Montreal, which is the Canucks' next game. After this one, of course, we'll be back to break down the game against Nashville and preview that game against Montreal on Monday. It's another Prime game, so keep a lookout for that, folks. Amazon Prime. But after that, that's when the schedule starts to get more difficult. It's great that Quinn Hughes is going to be able to be back in time for that, but it doesn't change the fact that when you face a team like Nashville, when you face a team like Montreal, this is a game for the Canucks to just take care of business and leave with 2 points.
Absolutely. Even though it's, again, the second leg of a back-to-back, I mentioned earlier in the week that I was looking at this stretch of Seattle, Calgary and Nashville as I want to see them win 2 out of 3. That should be the bar. That should be the expectation, even without the players that they're missing right now, just because the schedule becomes a lot tougher in the middle of January after that Montreal game. You've got to bank as many points as you can. The Canucks don't have much margin for error there, and the Preds, I mean, you brought up all the numbers. They just haven't been very good this season. They've got to take care of they just got to take care of business. It's really that simple.
Taking care of business. That's what we're doing. Let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends over at Greta. Announcement, folks. Save the date. Watch party. We're locking it in January 23rd against the Edmonton Oilers. It's a 6 p.m. start. That's going to be our second watch party of the year. I'm very excited for it. There's going to be ticket details and a bunch more stuff coming on. Much more details coming soon. It's all going to be at nationgear.ca and, of course, Greta Bar YVR. It's our place to chill all season long. We hope you join us on the 23rd. Even if we're not there, you certainly should be. Just minutes from the arena. Come by before and after the game or whatever event you're downtown for with the arcade games, weekly drink specials, and the recently updated street food menu. Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin, folks. I hope you come out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And a preliminary look, sounds like we're going to do some Four Nations party as well. I think we might be doing that. So that'll be a lot of fun. But going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a lot of fun on the 23rd, so we hope you can make it out. Let's get to anyone else in the chat. Some love for Nils Höglander. We didn't even talk about him yet, and I think we need to. Super hardworking shift. The best game we've seen from him in months, Harm, probably since October. Best game we've seen from Nils Höglander. This is from Broke Shinobi in the chat. Said, the way Hogs has been playing lately, a goal has got to come soon. If he does start scoring more, do the Canucks trade him, or do they still try to keep him? I've already made my opinion on this matter very clear. As soon as he gets any sort of value back up, I think you trade him as long as you plan on having Rick Tocchet as your long-term coach. I think it's only a matter of time until it goes the other direction. So if it goes in the right direction to the point where you actually are going to be able to get something for Nils Höglander in the trade market, I am trying to trade him.
Yeah, it's sad because I would want, because I'm a believer in the player, for it to work out for him here. But I don't get the sense that it's going to work out between him and Rick Tocchet long term. And like you said, if that's the reality you're living in, you may as well capitalize on his value if he starts to heat back up, and you get interest from other teams. But yeah, I mean, last night it was the most noticeable he's been in weeks on a shift by shift basis. The speed, the forechecking, winning battles. I love the rush that he had in the third period where he was driving into the slot and had a pretty good look. The chances have been there. Now it's just a matter of the finishing, right? And this is where sometimes I feel like Höglander's finishing ability is dependent on his confidence, because you go back to last season, he was a clinical finisher, but he was also really confident. At times when Höglander was, let's say, struggling under Bruce Boudreau, I remember thinking, boy, he's creating chances in bunches here. But it was at a time where he was still in and out of Boudreau's doghouse, and he was flubbing all the grade A chances he would get. It feels like we're in that territory lately. Not that he's had a ton of chances, but they've been there here and there over the last couple of weeks. You're just hoping that once he gets one or two of them, that the confidence gets back up and he could be a more consistent difference maker.
How do you find PDG is playing? That's a question from Cindy Wilhelm in the chat. Phil DiGiuseppe. I think he's been fine. I think that's the only way to describe Phil DiGiuseppe at the best of times, is he's been fine. Yeah, he's not really doing anything to make me say, oh, well, when Patterson gets back, he's got to move up to play with Miller and Besser so that DeBrusk can go down and play with Patterson, which I guess transitions to a interesting conversation about how the Canucks are going to form their lines when Patterson's back, because this DeBrusk, Miller, Besser trio may not have had their best game last night, but they have been producing. So let's get to both of those, Harm. First, your thoughts on PDG, and then second, how you think the Canucks might configure their lines when Patterson gets healthy.
Yeah, with PDG, I mean, he's played up to expectations, right? He, especially during his first couple of games, he was really noticeable on the back check, on the forecheck. He's picked up 3 assists in 6 games, so he's contributed some level of offense. But he's the type of player that you look at and say he's not going to actively hurt you, but he also doesn't bring enough to the table that you need to keep him in the lineup when everybody's healthy. And so when I look at this Canucks lineup, I would be pulling him from it when Paterson is healthy. And for the second part of that question, I think the certainty is, of course, you're keeping JT and Brock together. The DeBrusk aspect is really interesting. I'd have to see how they look against Nashville tonight, because they were really, really productive and dangerous against Calgary, but we saw how they had really no chemistry last night. And you also want to put Patterson in a position where he has some help to play with. So I think the DeBrusk aspect, I would wait to see how he fares over the next game or two, and then decide accordingly. But if when Patterson does come back, I'd want to see him with Connor Garland. Perhaps he needs somebody, right? If it's not going to be DeBrusk, it needs to be Connor Garland. He needs to have a legit top 6 caliber line mate by his side.
Okay. Box Van Gogh on that said, I think PDG is getting a reward and somebody else is getting snubbed. So we will see. We will see how this shakes out. Here's an interesting one, Harm. From Calvin99 Charlie in the chat, he said, what about moving Dak with Garland to get Dak going on scoring? Another guy I thought had a pretty good game last night was Dakota Joshua. He's starting to show some of the hands that he had last year. He's starting to show some of the drives to the middle that made him so successful last year, and mixing it up last night. Obviously mixes it up big time with Brandon Montour last night, but really liking what I'm seeing from Dakota Joshua. And again, we have a very different lens that we view Dakota Joshua through right now, because nobody knows what it's like to go through what he's gone through and how long it takes you to get your game back and all those sort of things. I don't think anybody's sitting here and saying that Dakota Joshua's played like the player that we've all seen him be in the past to this point in the season, but starting to show some signs of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's ramping back up. You could see that he's more engaged. He's more physical. He is more disruptive and forceful in the forecheck. He is absolutely getting better each game, it seems. And we'll see. I mean, it's not as if the Canucks have a ton of great winger options on that left side beyond DeBrusk right now. So if he keeps this up, yeah, the opportunity is going to be there for him to potentially move up, because that left wing spot beside Suter and Garland has been a little bit of a revolving door. Höglander got the first opportunity, wasn't quite working out. Höglander has since sort of figured it out last game on the fourth line. PDG was fine there, but he's also PDG. It's not a high bar, and I absolutely wouldn't mind seeing Joshua in that spot potentially over PDG if he continues some of the momentum from his improving play.
Okay, let's go to this one. This is from LC250. Said, what would a Noah Dobson trade look like, and what would Dobson's next contract look like? Couple things here. So earlier today, the Hockey News reported that the Canucks have high interest in Noah Dobson. Obviously, it doesn't come as much of a surprise, but the wording of high interest, I think, is what kind of differentiates that from obviously, high interest in Noah Dobson. What's it going to take to get Noah Dobson? That is when we're starting to get into that higher magnitude of trades, as we talked about yesterday. So let's not break down, let's put together trade packages for what it'll look like. It's going to be a big piece. It's going to be a big piece from the Canucks going back to the Islanders. I don't know what that's going to look like. It's going to be a big package. Dobson has a lot of value. The part I wanted to get to on this, Harm, is what does Noah Dobson's next contract look like? He's an RFA coming off a $4 million cap hit. He's going to be 25 years old. And as you think about your answer and you look up whatever you need to look up to help you come up with an answer here, I just want to say, I am convinced that I dreamt this, because I just checked, because I thought this person was wrong in the chat, because I was thinking Noah Dobson had an 8-year extension at $10 million annually, just waiting for him, and that was going to kick in next year. And I legitimately think I dreamt that he signed that contract, because I can't find anything. I don't know if this was a rumor that I read. I actually think I dreamt about this, that it was an 8-year deal at $10 million. That was his cap hit. I'm not joking. Like, I'm not doing a bit. I'm not joking. Like, I had to scroll through Puckpedia a couple times to make sure my eyes weren't deceiving me. He doesn't have a contract for next year as an RFA. I thought he had a $10 million cap hit waiting for him.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because he's having a bit of a down year, right? So last year he had 70 points, was getting Norris votes, and when I was sort of looking at the cost of his next contract, then I was sort of looking in and around that $9.5–10 million range potentially. But he's only got 20 points in 39 games now. Look, the cost is still going to be astronomically high for his next deal, but how much of a hit will he have to take because he's not having a season where he's playing at the level of a top 10 defenseman? That sort of remains to be seen. The thing to keep in mind is the price for young defensemen has been like, it's steep. Seeing, Owen Power, for example, on the extension that he signed, $8.35 million cap hit, and Power has never scored 40 points in a single season. Now it's different because Power is younger than Dobson, of course, but the point being, Power, for example, got nearly $8.5 million despite never having 40 points in a single season. I wonder if like Evan Bouchard might be a comp for Noah Dobson as well, in part because their numbers are similar in the regular season last year, and Bouchard's had a slower offensive start this year too. So part of it is TBD with seeing what Bouchard potentially gets as an RFA too. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine the cap hit, if I had to guess today, starts with a 9 potentially.
I'm gonna stick with my guns and say he's signing an 8-year deal at $10 million. This comment from Nick Pocek: some people dream about dating supermodels. Quads dreams about a Noah Dobson contract. That's good. Oliver Sholnick in the chat said Quads has his priorities straight. I hope my future wife is watching this. Hope she's watching today's show. But yes, Noah Dobson. I'm sticking with my guns. I had the dream. Harm. 8 years, $10 million. I'm sticking with my guns. That's what Noah Dobson's signing in Vancouver. I don't know if that was part of the dream. I'm sprinkling that part on that was in Vancouver. I literally, until it was brought up and I fact checked it, if you had asked me about Noah Dobson yesterday and we had gotten deeper into the conversation, I probably would have accidentally just said, well, he's owed $10 million for the next 8 years, so that's something to contend with. Like, I've legitimately thought this for a while, that Noah Dobson just had a extension in place. I did, honestly. I'm happy to own up to that too.
Yeah, and I think I saw somebody in the chat saying you can't use Power as a comp because it's Buffalo. They don't know what they're doing. But this is a trend with like young defensemen in general. I mean, Jake Sanderson, for example, got just over $8 million per season, and he never scored 40 points in a single season. You look at Brock Faber, who has blossomed into a player who's in a similar category, I'd say, as Dobson, where you look at him and go, number one defenseman, but not like Norris caliber. And Faber got $8.5 million. He's never scored 50 points in a single season. And Dobson last year had 70, and he was in the Norris conversation. Not to mention with Dobson, you're buying UFA years. UFA years are typically more expensive to procure and hold on to anyway. So the price is going to be massive for Dobson's next deal.
Yep. It's going to be much. It's going to be a lot. I just said it's going to be much. It's going to be 10 million. It's going to be 10 billion. Okay. Is there anything else in the chat? Jacob, any thoughts from you? Oh, the Family Feud survey. How are we looking? I gave the call out yesterday.
Yeah. Good early numbers on the Family Feud survey, but if you haven't filled it out yet, in the description on the audio podcast, on YouTube, on Facebook, so please go fill it out.
Okay, this one from Paul Papadoulis in the chat. Sabres blow another lead to Colorado. Do you think Byram is ready to try Miku sushi?
Yeah, I'm sure anybody on that team would love a fresh start, but I mean, this is the issue, right? Is we can talk about Byram's a bit of a different conversation because he's probably a lot more available than Dobson. But for example, when you brought up Dobson, the first thought that came in my mind was, sure, the Canucks can have all the interest they want, but why would the Islanders trade him unless they're trying to do a blow it up rebuild, which I haven't seen any indication that that's what they're attempting to do right now. Why would they move a number one defenseman in his prime?
Well, wait, do you want me to answer the question? Because I think it's simple.
Okay, what is it?
They don't have a good 2C. And they'd get a really good 1C, and Bo Horvat becomes your 2C.
Well, okay, so who are you? JT Miller is not going to get you Noah Dobson. If that's
I'm not talking about Elias Patterson, the defenseman.
Okay, well, fine. That's a different conversation. But again, then as a team, how much are you improving if you're trading away like a top line caliber center for a defenseman, right? Like, yeah, it solves a huge need on your blue line, but it also creates a huge need up the middle.
You get Barzal back in my deal. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't even think you're getting that. You're getting both of those guys in an NHL be a GM trade proposal.
Do you know what I've seen on Twitter? And
on
also,
like the easiest trade difficulty.
I'm gonna fact check you on that. I'm gonna fact check it and tweet it at you. Do you know what I've seen recently though? People, this whole Miller Patterson who's gonna get traded. Just people talking about the idea that they're just gonna trade them to the same place together. They're just like, no, both of you are gone. Both of you are actually going to Buffalo. So, anyways, Jacob says he's going to turn on his PlayStation right now and try that trade. I don't know if we have time for all that, for Jacob to try that. I don't know how much more we can solve. We don't have much more on anyone else. But Jacob, save that for Monday's show. I want you to write it down. Write down how that went.
I'll even I'll screen record it on my PlayStation. We can actually pull it up. No, we'll make it work. I think that'll be fun.
So take that, Harm. Okay. And Jacob, just add like 7th, 6th, 5th round picks until it works. Just make sure you do that.
Yeah, we'll add like a 2029 first round pick in there. You know, you're like that conversation you had with the GM a few months back, right?
Yes.
Just add a 2048 first round pick.
For those that don't remember, I was talking to an NHL GM, and we were talking AGM, I should say AGM. And I was asking him if there was any limitations on how far in advance you can trade draft picks for the CBA. And basically his answer was like, no owner is going to allow that. Like no owner is going to be like, and no team is going to do that. Either trading for or trading away the pick. Nobody is going to be like, yeah, we're really coveting this 2031 pick. You don't know anything about what's going to happen in that year. Teams don't do that. Teams don't do that with that lack of certainty. But there is nothing in the CBA prohibiting it. So trade your 2045 pick. Like, theoretically, Harm. Theoretically. Are you familiar with crypto scams?
Yes.
Okay, so hear me out. Owner Quads steps into the war room and he says, fellas, I'm planning on selling the organization in 2040. I've decided I want to sell it in 2040, 2045. This is when I want to sell it. I would like to win a cup before then to really raise the value of our franchise. Okay? Start trading away all of our 2041, 2042 picks. First, second, I don't care. Get rid of them. The draft doesn't exist in those years for this organization. Get as much as you can. Think of how many pieces you could get if you could just give away first round picks like they're candy. Think of how many pieces you could get in a single year and just trade your guys on ELCs. Like you're trading for Connor Bedard. Chicago, here's 3 picks in 2045. I don't care. Give me Connor Bedard. Probably gets it done. So I bring in Connor Bedard to this team. I bring in Rasmus Andersson to this team. Noah Dobson's on this team. Don't tell me dreams aren't possible. You add all these pieces, and you've got a legitimate window there to have a dynasty. Like a real dynasty is what we're looking at building here. At that point, I sell the franchise and do a little rug pull. And there's nothing, there's no scam against that. Someone said Quad Tua rug pull in the chat, but I don't think there's anything against this other than the fact it might be hard to get teams to agree to these trades, especially if they hear this.
Sure. The issue is, let's say owner Harmon, you're trying to sell to owner Harmon. Mm-hmm. Now you're pitching me a franchise that, okay, you won your Stanley Cup or two or your dynasty in the past. Mm-hmm. But now all those players, Dobson, because remember, this is 2040, Dobson, Bedard, they're all retired. So you've got no active players and you have none of your picks coming up. Why would I? Now I don't want to pay.
We've made savvy college free agents along the way. Signings, we've made those.
Yeah, Akito Hiroses, the new Akito Hiroses, Cole McWards. Yeah, owner Harmon isn't going to play ball, and I'm going to lowball you now.
Okay, that's
because
fine,
you don't have your picks.
That's fine because you know hockey. No offense, Harm. You're not a billionaire. You can't buy a franchise. So I'm going to say that I could trick at least one billionaire into buying a franchise and no draft picks. Like, do you really think every owner really understands the draft that well? Like current owners?
Yeah. I think they understand. First round pick is valuable. Second round pick is valuable. This team you're buying has none of them.
But do you know what else they know? Look at all our season ticket memberships we're selling. And we have all these people renewing, and we're still winning. Like, you have to understand, I'm not selling this after all the cups. We're going to win cups for years. I'm selling this in, like, year 2 or 3 of the cup, and we're going to win 5 cups in a row. That's what I'm selling. I'm not waiting until the value's actually gone. I'm doing it before that because I can see it coming.
Yeah, nobody else can see it coming, right? Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad we agree. Okay, Oliver Sholnick. Quad's taking the Raptors approach. Trade everything for one shot at the championship. Absolutely. Seems like a pretty great idea. Karn in the chat said, what did I stumble into? I think he was late joining the show and just heard us having this conversation. Hey, Anakin in the chat. What buyer's buying a franchise with no picks? I just told you. You could convince an owner, like, or someone to become an owner of a franchise just with the thought of, hey, look how much winning they've done, storied history now, Vancouver's beautiful.
Just don't look at the potential future whatsoever.
Oh, look at the future. We've got this prospect. Nothing. There's so many kids playing college. They're just looking for a shot, Harm. Looking for a shot, and we're going to give it to him. Okay. Jacob, did you have time to do the trade? We went on longer than I thought.
No, I'm still setting it up, but we'll do it. We'll
Sure.
kick off Monday's show with like the full cinematic trade process in NHL 25.
Harmon is having none of this right now, but I'm excited to do it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay, let's get to our bet 3. Or Harmon, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. Really? Not on the... I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Okay, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365, proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Okay, last night we missed. The Wagon Flames did not get it done against Utah. I really thought they would. Who do we like tonight? I think we're going to go with underdogs again. And go with the Ottawa Senators, who are taking on the St. Louis Blues. A minus 105 money line bet right there. Minus 105 on the money line for the Blues, or the Ottawa Senators to beat the St. Louis Blues. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, folks, we will wrap it up there. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will be back on Monday to break down this game and, of course, preview Monday's game against the Montreal Canadiens and have a little bit of a fun with a potential trade, the trade meter. I like this. I think this should become a regular thing in our shows. What does NHL say about this trade? Can we get this done in EA Sports NHL? We'll close it out there. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Czar, my name is Dave Quadrelli. Thanks so much for such an episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.